Well, to be honest, I've been dreading doing this video. Salmonella holds a special place in my heart. It was the first video that we ever created at Sketchy, hand-drawn by none other than our illustrious co-founder, Brian Lemieux. In a way, it served as a constant reminder for us at Sketchy about where we came from and undoubtedly shaped where we are today. But unfortunately, we had to take it down after a high-profile lawsuit brought on us by the chicken industry. And if there's any industry you don't want to cluck with, believe me, it's big chicken. Okay, now we're actually going to break up salmonella into two sketches, which are typhoidal salmonella and non-typhoidal salmonella. So this scene is the story of Finding Samo. Finding Samo is that classic tale of a young salmon who gets lost at sea, only to discover fame after being in a box office smash. He then leaves behind his friends and family in a trail of destruction fueled by drugs and alcohol. You know the movie. Not to worry, this isn't him, just another poor, hapless fish, but you'll notice the salmon is red and kind of pill-shaped because salmonella is a gram-negative rod. He's a fast swimmer, just like salmonella, which are motile, flagellated bacteria. Look at him go. But he can't get far because he's walled off in this fishbowl. Just like the polysaccharide capsule, also called an O-antigen capsule, which protects salmonella. Salmonella can actually live and replicate inside macrophages, which we've symbolized with our recurring macrophage cage. You'll notice that this cage is open because salmonella is not obligated to live inside macrophages, but it can when it wants to, so it's a facultative intracellular organism. At last, we finally found Samo, and just in time, he's making his great escape through that plate glass window. Oof. Good luck, friend. Macrophages aren't the only cells that salmonella can enter. Invasive salmonella serotypes, that's all typhoidal salmonella and some types of non-typhoidal salmonella, can actually penetrate gut cells and M cells. They do so to get across the intestinal barrier and spread to other sites outside of the GI tract. Another important thing to know about salmonella is that it's acid labile. An acidic stomach helps the host to resist a nasty infection. But imagine what would happen if your patient is on a PPI. That's right. Suppressing that acid may be enough to allow salmonella to survive passage through the stomach and become infectious. Luckily, salmonella generally takes a higher inoculum to cause illness than, say, Shigella, which is acid stable. However, typhoidal salmonella actually has a lower infectious dose than non-typhoidal salmonella. Ooh, look at that. We're mature enough not to play a fart sound. Duh, I should have known. Anyway, this flatulent fish is to help us remember that salmonella produces hydrogen sulfide gas, or H2S. This is important because it helps our ability to differentiate salmonella from Shigella on a special enteric bacterial growth plate called Hectoin agar. On Hectoin agar, salmonella form black colonies, while Shigella forms green colonies. And that's why we've made these plates black. As a reminder, when we talk about salmonella, we're talking about serotypes of a subspecies of Salmonella anaerotica. But we want to break down salmonella to something more digestible, which is why we're keeping more of a clinical focus on typhoidal versus non-typhoidal. This diagram is a simplified depiction of serotype grouping. Notice the typhoidal serotype has a K1 antigen, while the non-typhoidal serotype has a K2 antigen. In reality, a whole host of antigens are used to group the isolates into distinct serotypes. Typhoidal salmonella, or TS, represented by the Thai food menu, consists of only two serotypes, typhi and paratyphi. Stay tuned, you're going to learn a lot about those in part 2 of our fishtail. For non-typhoidal salmonella, NTS, there are many other serotypes, but we care about two, Enteritidis, also known as Enteritas, Enteritidis enteritas, or Typhimurium, represented here by turmeric. Non-typhoidal salmonella infections are common in industrialized countries like the US. See this smorgasbord of food on the table? Salmonella has led to numerous food outbreaks in both fresh and processed food products, including fresh fruit and vegetables, especially lettuces, eggs, milk, peanut butter, and many more. It's also been known to contaminate water supplies. Non-typhoidal salmonella are zoonotic, and poultry is the primary reservoir. Consuming incompletely cooked poultry or undercooked eggs can result in infection. Many other animals can carry salmonella too. Reptiles and amphibians are a common source of exposure, especially among children who have them as pets. Okay, let's talk about the illnesses caused by salmonella. Gastroenteritis is the #1 manifestation of salmonella. Symptoms include fever, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and abdominal cramping. You may have heard about pea soup diarrhea, but really there are no reliable clinical features that differentiate Salmonella gastroenteritis from any other cause. The gastrointestinal disease is self-limited in most cases, but immunocompromised patients can experience more severe disease. So generally, we think of Salmonella as confined to the GI tract, but based on an interplay of host factors and bacterial factors, Salmonella have potential to cross the protective intestinal barrier and spread throughout the body. Salmonella can spread from the GI tract to the bloodstream, depicted by the salmon leaping through the M cells towards the Red River. Bacteremia itself can lead to septic shock and death, or Salmonella can spread to other parts of the body where further complications can ensue. This can happen in the abdominal aorta, depicted by this branching aorta tree by the flowing Red River. Think of Salmonella as a potential culprit if you see fever and back pain in a patient with heart disease in a recent bout of gastroenteritis. Non-typhoidal Salmonella can also be a cause of meningitis, represented by that hot sun setting over the brain tree. It's a very serious complication and carries a high risk of mortality. It can occur in newborns or infants, but fortunately it's pretty rare. If you diagnose an adult with Salmonella meningitis, think of HIV as a probable underlying risk factor. Salmonella can also spread hematogenously to the bones and cause osteomyelitis. Those with sickle cell disease are at risk for Salmonella osteomyelitis, but this complication occurs with many other immunocompromising conditions as well. Also, keep in mind that even though there is an association of sickle cell disease and Salmonella osteomyelitis, Staph aureus is still the most common bacterial cause in these patients. Now that we know all about Salmonella infections, how do we treat them? We can pretty much allow Salmonella gastroenteritis to run its course in a little over a week. Yep, like that sign says, no need to reach for antibiotics, and that's because antibiotics are generally not indicated. All antibiotics carry a risk of side effects, and in people who are given antibiotics, Salmonella may actually stick around longer. This is called asymptomatic carriage. However, in cases of severe gastrointestinal Salmonella, we're talking high fever, lots of diarrhea, requiring an inpatient admission, antibiotics may be warranted, and you may also want to use them in immunocompromised patients. If antibiotics are indicated, fluoroquinolones are the preferred choice. And these 3 axes placed here suggest that the 3rd generation cephalosporins, like ceftriaxone, are a good alternative. Lastly, antibiotics are absolutely necessary for invasive Salmonella infections. In addition, surgery to drain or debride infected tissue may be needed. If you're anything like what I assume is probably millions of people out there who are just completely devastated, torn apart, and just really bereft about the original Salmonella sketch being taken down, you can always go see it on YouTube. Unless, of course, Big Chicken decides to go take them down too.